Seems to be kind of sparse today.
Pretty
And only
basic
one
stuff.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Public Works Finance Committee meeting for October 23rd, 2017. Present this afternoon is Walter Steed on my right and Gina Terusio on my left, Gary Reedner representing the city, and Sarah Banks from the Finance Department. We'll start the festivities off today with the approval of the Public Works Finance Committee October 9th, 2017 minutes. There was, I saw one correction that was just
One adjustment.
some language adjustments to deal with my Eastern Idaho colloquial speech, and apparently we've got that squared away. And you happy with that, Mr.
We're
Steed?
happy with
Okay.
that, yes, sir.
Any other additions or corrections to the minutes?
Nope.
Entertain a motion to approve then.
So move.
Second.
All right, we'll submit them as approved. Item number 2 on today's agenda is approval of the InfoSend contract for utility billing. Sarah, tell us about the details on that.
So, as you know, the city currently utilizes postcards for the utility billing, and in the past, there has been a desire to expand on what we send out to customers regarding usage and the history of their past usage. So we looked this past budget year, we looked at a couple of different companies to see about outsourcing to go to a full-page bill, and it would include more information. We could also put an insert from other departments such as administration or our water department. And so that's what we presented in the FY18 budget. So we're looking now to try to go ahead and move forward with the contract from InfoSend to get that started. Our first bill would be in January for December usage.
Do you have a sample?
I do have a sample. I do not have a sample. I do have the sample. It's on my desk. I will get that to you in a few
Okay.
minutes.
I know the city's talked about this for years, the fact that we have very limited information on the postcards. The public has asked about more information, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. The, if I may, the 2921
Yes.
monthly cost for outsourcing, what is the net? What's our current postcard and postage cost? Does that come off of that?
It does not. So our current postcard postage is actually approximately around the same amount. It's just it's dispersed differently because we're doing all of our in-house postcards. I don't know the exact amount of the postcards themselves, but this outsourcing actually doesn't truly increase our expense for billing that much collectively. But the exact amount, I can't tell you that without being able to pull it.
Sorry, I just thought of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was interested in the staff time difference, too.
There's
Since
gonna be
we're
significant.
outsourcing this, you should free up people in your department, or I don't know whose department that.
In our department, yeah. Cassie is our utility billing specialist, and it takes her about a day to be able to print all of these, get them prepared, because we have over 5,000. We have approximately 5,500 that we produce, and they're in postcards. She has to tear them, get them ready to go, and so this will free up a lot of her time.
Not to mention they're printed on site, so on and so forth. So,
Right.
So this, we just transmit a data file to InfoSend. They generate the mailings, they get it sent out. So it really streamlines our process quite a bit.
It does.
The additional inserts is huge. As you know, as Sarah explained already, having information about water conservation, usage, that sort of thing. One of the other things that we intend on bringing forward is a conversion from cubic feet in our billing to gallonage.
Good.
People, the people are really interested.
We're going to tell them something they might understand.
I get a question a week about that. What does this mean, 200 what?
Yeah.
You know?
So we will be bringing an amendment to the fee resolution that just has the conversion. It won't change the rates any, but it'll, instead of a cubic feet charge, it'll be a gallonage charge. So that'll hopefully help us with our transparency to our utility ratepayers as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for conservation efforts as well. When people actually have a reference point that they understand on their bill, then it makes it easier to say, well, I'm using 200 somethings, or I'm using 800 gallons. That makes a difference to them in terms of what they can.
I have a question. Speaking about the communication, I really like this idea, and more coming from the city to the customers. My question is, will we limit what goes in there? Is it water information only, or is it What?
Once, the postage is covered by the utilities, because if we elect to put a city newsletter in, if we want to talk about
Good.
something, update to the strategic plan, any of that stuff is fine.
Could be out that way.
It doesn't
Good.
have to be limited to the water department.
That's awesome.
And the outsourced company will also send e-bills? Do we have some people that don't get a paper bill?
We do not. So
Oh, okay.
currently, that's not something we exactly have set up, but InfoSend does have the capability if we wanted to do e-bills. That's something that's in our contract. It's not something we've established, but they do have kind of the same situation where they could print everything, get it to go, and then they could send it to the emails for us, and we could receive confirmation they were sent. The only downside is we don't have that confirmation that it was received. So that's kind of what we're trying to figure out right now.
Yeah.
Because with postage, we know that's received.
We're not e-billing, but we will
Not
have the
currently.
ability to if we desire to.
Correct.
Not e-billing, but you can pay online, of course, and they can still do that.
Yep, they can.
Speaking as a household who does move towards electronic billing, if we don't have a whole lot of information on it, or if we don't know the rollout, it'd be good, I think, if we plan for it. Because I'll be close to the top of who wants to not get a paper bill.
Right. And it could be e-billed. I mean, it would be the exact same thing you received, too, which is nice. Insert everything. And that's something we discussed with them, so it's full-fledged.
Oh, that's great.
Certainly a significant portion of the expense is the postage and the printing and postage on this, so the more people we could eventually convert to that, the cheaper it would be. Do we know what the differential is? I think that's where you were going with that. What the differential is between doing this in-house and outsourcing it when you consider the labor cost and the...
As I think the time's a little more than a day just to print and tear these
Right.
things apart, but you've got all the handling, the mailing, all that sort of thing. Being done automatically, I'd put it probably closer to 2 days by the time you're all done. It's not going to save, it's going to cost us actually more than the billing we do now, but the information you can send out is a lot better. So the postage stays the same. You're probably, again, I'm not sure of exact numbers, but it does cost more to do this than it does to stay with the cards.
Can you get us a
That'd be
estimated
interesting to
net?
know.
And I was actually looking at that before I came in here, and it is not significant, the difference, but I can get those broken out for you.
I would really, probably monetarily, it's not significantly different, but the work that
Right.
one poor individual is doing, tearing things apart for however long, is humongous to me. So I already think this is a better deal because the dignity of work takes a big nosedive on
Correct.
those days. Big nosedive.
Well, plus that time can be used for something that's more productive, and so I think that's part of the differential. If that person's more productive doing something else, then that should figure into, if it costs us more to outsource it, but we get more productivity out of that individual, then maybe it's a wash.
Well, as you know, we continue our analysis and restructuring of our finance personnel, and this will allow that person to spend more time on other tasks, where rather than just the mindless tearing cards apart and mailing them out.
I did that in a prior job. I promise you, it does a lot for retention that we would be considering. I promise. So,
Gary, should this go on, I think this committee's in favor of it, should it go on full agenda for publicity purposes?
Certainly can. I mean, roll it out as saying
I
it's
think
going
it's
to
not a
happen.
big time waster. We can put it on there. It's not, the presentation's not huge.
To let the public know
Yeah, we could have an
things are
example.
going, things
put
are
an
going to
example
change in
the packet.
January?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You're going to get a better bill that gives you better information that you can use instead of something you
I'll
don't
walk that
understand.
example up to you in a minute.
And put, if the example's sufficient, Gary, if it's got enough detail, to put it up on the screen so the television audience, which we know
Certainly take a look
we
at
know
that.
there's more than 3 people watching because they keep telling us.
You
And,
bet.
and just so you know, the example is basic. It does not have, there's going to be there's no insert, there's the
You
verbiage is minimal, so, and all that's going to be changed, but it'll give you an idea.
okay.
yeah, we could use that to publicize it.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we're
Cut
unanimous.
cut down on your, what is this phone calls?
Yeah. We're unanimous in our recommendation of approval and that we should
Agreed.
put this on a regular agenda for the full council to see. Okay. All right, moving on to item number 3 is the refinance of Series 2008 sewer revenue bonds. It's calling bonds and saving a lot of money. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, this is, thank you very much. This is pretty much a no-brainer. We did this several years ago with our Series 2011 bonds, I think they were. No, I think it was.
The refinance was the 2011.
Yes, and we saved a significant interest rate on those. This is a situation where Piper Jaffray, Eric Herringer is our financial consultant on it. They will go through. He's estimated that the savings over the remaining life of the bond, about 10 years, will be significant, maybe as high as $340,000 over that remaining term. The finance advisor and bond counsel get paid out of the proceeds of the bond. So it's very similar to if you're doing a bond issuance like a GO bond or the original sewer revenue bonds. You may refinance these once. Otherwise, we'd be looking at refinancing the ones that we refinanced several years ago. What the council would be doing is, this is more a report and looking for an approval to proceed. We believe it should be ready to go the first meeting in December when the actual paperwork will come in, and either bond counsel or Eric will be here to present it or give us sufficient information to be able to do that. They will go ahead, move forward, and when these bonds are callable in May, we will have the cash ready to go. The interest rate, however, will be set as of the time the council approves the transaction. So everything's legally correct to go ahead and do this. The options that you see on the assumptions page, which is page 3, there are 3 different options. One is to get a market sale at our current bond rating, which is A+. It's a little higher on interest rate. Idaho Bond Bank is a little lower, but as you can see, the time for the transaction is quite extensive. Figure the private placement can be done, and that's just where it's marketed to a financial institution to purchase or an investment group to purchase, so it's a single buyer essentially. The Idaho Bond Bank, on the other end, saves you a little bit more interest, not significantly when you look at the effective interest rate at the bottom, about 6% or 0.6%. But it takes 3.5 months to get that done because they do them in batches. So the private placement could be done fairly quickly. The bond market right now is at historic lows, so it makes sense, at least it made sense to me, to pick that option in order to be able to tie that rate in as quickly as possible.
Which option was that?
That was the private placement.
But you said that the rate would be fixed as of the date we
Yes.
Council
accept it?
approved it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what difference does it make if it takes 3.5 months to do the bonds? Get the
Because
bonds out?
rates could go up in 3.5 months. The chances of rates changing appreciably in a month and a half are much less than taking the 3.5 month risk.
Okay, I must have misunderstood.
It's locked in as of the date the council approves it, but the private placement, in order to get the paperwork out there, get it done, is all set in a month and a half as opposed to 3.5 months. So, how do I want to put this? So, the beginning of December is when the private placement rate would be set because the paperwork's done at that time. It wouldn't be ready to go until the beginning of March if we went with the bond bank.
Right on.
And that's when the interest rate would be set. So we're just trying to reduce
Okay,
risk.
so the bond bank, the rate is not set when we
Yes,
say do it. Okay.
precisely.
Okay.
Well, you wouldn't even get the chance to say do it for 3.5 months because the paperwork would have to be approved by the bond bank, so on and so forth. So anyway, it seemed like the best deal. The savings, if you look at the average annual savings down at the bottom, third line from the bottom, the difference between the bond bank and the private placement's only about $2,200 per annum. So again, it seemed like accepting the least amount of risk and being able to tie in to the best rate was the private placement. So with that, you have Piper Jaffray's agreement, which I just put in there for your reading pleasure as you.
Are we locked into Piper as the underwriter on this?
Yes. Well, they're in there as our consultant. They're not allowed to act
And not the
as
underwriter.
underwriter or It's specifically laid out under scope of services. Yeah, they're just providing services with the transactions, so they don't underwrite them. And if you look at limitation on scope of services on page 2, subsection 2, Roman numeral 2, talks about exactly what they're doing. Okay?
So do we have the option of the underwriting be competitive between other firms to
That's all
minimize the
handled
cost?
by Piper Jaffray. They will go out and they will get the best deal they can. So that's why you turn it over to a financial consultant. They handle the entire transaction.
Okay.
So, Gary, the document that's in here is signed and dated October 18.
It is.
So is this more of a, this is what we've done as opposed to, are we allowed to do this?
I'm following the same process that we followed when we refinanced the 2011 bonds. The finance director retained the financial consultant, advised the council. Council has the ultimate authority to accept or reject when that comes through.
When it comes back,
Yes.
back through? Okay. So this doesn't need to go to council?
Bring it to council is informational. It's a managerial thing because it ultimately will result in the savings of money. Finance directors have always traditionally handled that.
So the proposed action is not quite correct in the packet?
It would be an action item on the agenda. It would be, if it was on consent agenda, we'd be voting to approve the refinancing.
Yeah.
We still have to do that.
I know
But we
that.
still haven't, we
we
will
don't
have to
have to-
vote at a later date on approving the interest rate that we get.
Right.
Part of the reason that we entered into this, I signed it, was so we could reduce even more risk than having to wait until November 5th or 6th, whenever the next council meeting is.
Okay, I'm not questioning
Got it.
that. I'm trying to understand the order of things and what we're actually doing. So,
Well, I would like to know the council approves of my moving forward with this, which is why it's on the agenda.
so it's a ratification as opposed to an approving refinancing, refunding. It's a ratification of the hiring of Piper Jaffray to
I believe
pay
that-
the refinancing.
I believe that authority lies with the finance director. I'm advising you, and I would like your tacit approval that, yes, you understand what you're doing, we understand we're going to see the final documents, and we'll have a chance to approve them. So if you want me to rewrite the action, I can certainly do
I
that.
think the action needs to be rewritten to more accurately reflect what we're doing. I'm not having any problem here, except I'm just a little confused about what we're approving.
I would respectfully disagree. I am totally fine with approving this as it stands.
So
It's
we-
just that it says approve refinancing,
Well, I'm
refunding,
happy.
as though we've already
Yeah.
arrived at the terms when
Yeah.
perhaps we haven't.
I am
So-
happy to change it to a ratification, too.
It's going to come back to us.
I just want to
so
make sure it
just a short
happens.
time.
not
We're approving moving forward with the document, with the
refinancing,
yes.
refinancing.
We are-
Yeah. Not the terms of the refinancing, because we don't know what those are
Exactly.
yet. Yeah, right. So-
I can make it more clear.
Okay, excellent.
super duper.
Okay?
Awesome.
Okay, do you want that on consent with a restated action?
Yeah, that's where I'd like to see it. I don't think it needs any consideration. It's an
Okay.
administrative
I
deal
will-
that saves a lot of money. No one's going to object to it.
Yeah, if I was spending a lot of money, I'd expect a little more of a
I'll see
fight.
if I can get Art.
Unless you're-
I'll see if I can get Art to pull it off the consent, and we'll talk about it.
Unless
some more.
someone in the gallery owns a lot of those bonds and wants the higher interest rate and doesn't want us to call them, then I suppose it'll pass.
Okay.
On to the
Okay.
next item.
Okay, on to item number 4, the Partnership for Economic Prosperity office lease at the Intermodal Transit Center.
I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion on this item, sir.
Would you like to have Art take your place?
Art, would you like to come up and take my place? Really, it's fun.
He's hiding back there behind Rob.
I will leave my agenda for you.
Thank you.
You can answer all the questions.
I will do my best.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bedke.
Sorry?
For those watching on TV, entering the fray now is
If you could
Mr.
go
Art
to the trouble to
Bedke.
come to this, we'll put you to work.
Thank you. What you have before you is a request to lease the empty office at the Intermodal Transit Center to the Partnership for Economic Prosperity, which is, as you know, a joint partnership among the City, County, Chamber of Commerce, and University of Idaho for economic development type services, collaboration, if you will. Currently, PEP is housed in the Moscow Chamber of Commerce. As I said, the Chamber of Commerce is one of our partners in this enterprise. I serve on the board of PEP as well, in the interest of full disclosure. The office in the ITC is located a little closer to resources at the University of Idaho, as well as has access to a very nice conference room, if any of you have been in the conference room in the ITC, both of which are advantages to PEP. The rent on the office is $215 per month. That is the same rate of rent that the Community Transportation Association of Idaho, which used to rent that space for their mobility manager. They got out of the mobility manager business, so that space has been vacant for over 18 months. It's a nice little office space. It's not very big, but it's in a nice facility. It has access to a conference room. Certainly there's, with U of I parking transportation services and smart transit there, it's a pretty busy little building. So adequate parking, so on and so forth. PEP Board of Directors has reviewed, or the president and the executive director, and I believe I sent it out to the rest of the directors as well. They're in favor of moving forward with this. So we made it a year-to-year lease with a 5-year term before it's renewable for up to 5 years, at which point PEP and or the city would review and determine which way they wanted to go with it. It's a much revised lease than that which CTAI had, which followed more of the SMART lease and the parking and transportation services lease. It has a 3% escalator provision in it to keep up with inflation. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard transaction. As I said, the office is currently vacant and has been for about 18 months.
How much do we pay the chamber?
They do it as part of their in-kind. They also pay $5,000 as their participation in PEP. But they provided the office space and telephone, meaning access to a common line.
So since they're on the board and that's their contribution, and we don't use that office space, then their contribution will change to cash at this point?
Yeah, they pay $5,000 now. They had not before because the office space was being renovated and maintained for PEP. So now it'll convert to cash.
So they're going to pay more than $5,000?
No, they're going to be paying $5,000. The $5,000.
Yeah, now I am lost.
Yeah, me too.
It's the in-kind payment thing where they just waived off the rent as part of the in-kind payment to the 5,000.
Okay, so they're going to convert donated office space to $5,000.
No, I want to make sure there's no confusion. The partnership has $40,000 from the city, $40,000 from the university, $40,000 from the county, $5,000 from the Chamber of Commerce, and then in addition, the Chamber of Commerce provided that space.
In addition. So they've already been at cash.
Yes.
So now they're just not going to provide the space.
Yes.
What about telephone cost in the new space?
That'll be done through the city. We have it on our, I can't remember the name of the service, but it's done through our computer service, voice over IP. So same thing that SMART and I believe University is hooked up to university services. SMART and CTAI just go through the city.
So this is an expense to the PEP budget
Yes.
and no expense to the city's budget.
No, the services are already being provided. I'm sure there will probably be some kind of incremental expense to the information services for the telephone or something like that, but it won't be significant.
That the city will pick up?
Yeah, there's a telephone. I believe we took the telephone out of the office, meaning the console itself. but it was provided to CTAI, so we'll just move it back.
So since Jenny's not here, I'll just ask, the chamber is probably in favor of this because now they get a conference room where,
Essentially, they
Yes,
get the office back. And it was the only reason the move is being made is because it's more convenient, closer to those resources at the U of I, and access to a larger conference room.
But in one of the forums, and I lose track of which one, I believe Gina made a comment that part of her work was working with existing businesses.
Absolutely.
Just like this moves her closer to the university, it moves her further away from those businesses, doesn't it? So the
Depends on
the
which
1 mile
business.
distance between the two offices is kind of moot.
It's also working with the entire county and not just Moscow, so if you're a business in the county, the distance
Well,
is going to be
that's-
negligible.
Yeah, that's no change.
Yeah, it doesn't mean there won't be access to the chamber conference room for things downtown. Certainly, there will be still interaction, as with the city, with the chamber and use of those facilities, just as some of the PEP board meetings are held in City Hall, some of them are held at the chamber. We haven't had any at the university or the county yet, but I'm certain that will happen as well.
Well, this is just a little of the conflicting that I've seen could happen. We really, I think, ought to be sitting here with PEP approaching us saying, we want to rent the space y'all have got that's available in the ITC, without any real discussion about what were they paying at the chamber and and PEP's finances and all of that, I guess. What this really is that PEP's approaching the city
Exactly.
to rent space in the ITC.
And I'm presenting it as a representative of the city that I've been approached by PEP that they would like to rent this space. That's my play.
Yeah,
the only reason that the idea of what happens when the chamber doesn't provide the space anymore is just that as a group that finances part of PEP, I'm just interested in how that financially affects the PEP. So, but otherwise, I have no problem with that at all. And certainly, there's no excuse for not having transportation to meetings. Transportation comes right to the door there.
Okay. What is your pleasure?
So I would move that we recommend approval of this lease to PEP and move forward with this.
Yep.
As
Put
a
it on consent?
consent agenda, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I have nothing further, sir.
Apparently, we have nothing further as well. And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Entertain yourself.
All right, adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.